They switched my medication while I slept. I noticed the very first morning. The pills were the same shape, same color, but the coating felt different on my tongue. Smoother, too smooth. I didn't say a word. I just swallowed water and smiled at my granddaughter across the breakfast table, like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Megan moved in 3 weeks after my fall. I'd slipped on the back porch steps, twisted my ankle badly, bruised my hip. Nothing broken, thank God, but enough to scare my daughter Patricia into a flurry of phone calls and worried texts. Mom, you can't live alone anymore. What if something worse happens? What if you hit your head? I told her I was fine. I'd been fine for 6 years since Harold passed. I managed my own groceries, my own bills, my own doctor's appointments. I still drove to the library every Tuesday and played cards with Ruth and Dolores on Fridays. I wasn't some fragile thing waiting to shatter, but Patricia insisted. And when Patricia insists, she doesn't stop until she gets her way. That's how Megan ended up on my doorstep with 2 suitcases and a husband named Derek, who smiled too wide and shook my hand too long. We're here to help, Grandma, Megan said, hugging me like I was already half gone. You won't have to worry about anything anymore. That was the first lie. The second lie came 3 days later, when Derek offered to organize my paperwork, said it would be easier for everyone if he knew where things were, just in case. I let him sit at Harold's old desk in the study, watched him flip through folders and make notes in a little leather book he carried everywhere. He found the savings account statements. I saw his eyes change when he read the numbers. Not surprise exactly, more like confirmation. That's when I understood. They hadn't come to take care of me. They'd come to take what was mine. Megan was 29, my daughter's only child. She'd been a sweet girl once, the kind who picked wildflowers and left them in jars on my windowsill. But somewhere along the way, that sweetness curdled into something else. Entitlement, maybe, or desperation. She'd bounced between jobs for years, retail and waitressing, always quitting before she was fired, always blaming someone else. Derek was her 3rd husband in 8 years. He sold insurance, or said he did. I never saw him go to work. They took the guest bedroom at the end of the hall. Within a week, it smelled like Derek's cologne and Megan's vanilla candles. Within 2 weeks, their things had spread through the house like a slow flood. Derek's magazines on the coffee table, Megan's shoes by every door, their groceries filling my refrigerator, expensive things I'd never buy. Organic this, imported that, all on my credit card, which Derek had somehow gotten the number for. I noticed. I always notice. 40 years as a nurse teaches you to watch for small changes. The slight tremor in a patient's hand, the pause before an answer, the way someone's breathing shifts when they're hiding pain. People think nursing is about medicine, but really, it's about attention. And I was paying very close attention. The medication switch happened on a Thursday. I keep my pills in a weekly organizer on the kitchen counter, the kind with little compartments for each day. That morning, my blood pressure medication looked right but felt wrong. I'd been taking those pills for 11 years. I knew them like I knew my own face in the mirror. I palmed the pill, pretended to swallow, then spit it into my napkin when Megan turned to pour more coffee. Later, alone in my bathroom, I compared it to the bottle in my medicine cabinet. Same manufacturer, same dosage printed on the label, but the pill itself was different. Lighter, the coating too glossy. I didn't panic. Panic is for people who don't have plans. Instead, I drove to the pharmacy that afternoon, while Megan was napping and Derek was wherever Derek went during the day. I showed the pill to young Marcus behind the counter, the pharmacist's son who'd known me since he was stocking shelves as a teenager. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, frowning at the pill under his magnifying lamp. "This isn't your prescription. It's a sedative. Low dose, but still. Where did you get this?" "From my pill organizer at home." His face went pale. "Someone switched your medication?" "It appears so. We need to call the police. This is serious." "Not yet," I said. "I need to understand what I'm dealing with first." He didn't like it, but he agreed to document everything. Photographs, chemical analysis, a written statement. I asked him to keep it quiet for now, and he nodded solemnly, like we were conspiring on something important. We were. That night, I made pot roast for dinner. Megan complained about the calories. Derek ate 3 helpings and didn't say thank you. I smiled through all of it. The patient grandmother, slightly confused, maybe a little forgetful. I even asked Derek twice what day it was, watching satisfaction flicker across his face. Let them think the pills were working. Let them think I was slipping. Meanwhile, I started keeping records. A small notebook hidden inside the lining of my sewing basket, where no one would ever look. I wrote down everything. October 12th. Derek went through my filing cabinet while I pretended to nap. Found him holding the deed to the house. October 15th. Megan asked about my investments 3 times during lunch. October 18th. $847 charged to my credit card at a store I've never visited. Derek's new watch appeared the same day. I also wrote down what I heard through the walls at night. Sound carries in old houses, especially when people think you're asleep. She's getting more confused, Megan whispered once. Did you see her at dinner? She couldn't even remember what year it was. Derek laughed. Give it another month. She'll need round-the-clock care, and we'll have power of attorney before Christmas. Power of attorney. That was their endgame. Get me declared incompetent, take control of everything, and wait for me to die. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not fear. Something harder. Something that had been sleeping for a long time. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Ruth Gaines. We'd known each other since she was fresh out of law school, handling the paperwork when Harold and I bought this house. Now she had gray in her hair and reading glasses on a chain around her neck, but her mind was still sharp as a scalpel. I need to update my will, I told her, and I need it done quietly. What's going on, Eleanor? I told her. All of it. The pills, the credit card, the whispered conversations. Ruth listened without interrupting, her pen scratching notes onto a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she set down the pen and looked at me over her glasses. You're sure about this? I've been a nurse for 40 years. I know when someone's trying to kill me slowly. That's a strong accusation. It's not an accusation. It's an observation. Ruth was quiet for a moment. Then she opened a drawer and pulled out a fresh stack of documents. Let's get you protected first. We'll create a revocable trust, name beneficiaries of your choosing, and make sure no one can claim you were coerced or confused. Then we'll talk about next steps. Next steps. I liked the sound of that. I signed everything that afternoon. Megan's name was nowhere in the new documents. Neither was Patricia's, though that hurt more than I expected. My daughter had enabled this, maybe not knowingly, but she'd handed me over to these people without asking questions. She'd stopped calling after the first week, satisfied that the kids were handling things. The kids. As if Megan and Derek were doing me a favor instead of dismantling my life piece by piece. I drove home slowly, taking the long way along the coast. The ocean was gray that day, churning against the rocks like something restless. I pulled over at the overlook where Harold and I used to watch the sunset, and I sat there for a long time, thinking. People assume old women are harmless, soft, easy to ignore. They look at my white hair and my reading glasses and my cardigan sweaters, and they see someone who's already half gone, someone who won't fight back. They're wrong. I got back to the house just before dinner. Megan was on the phone in the living room, voice low and urgent. She hung up quickly when she saw me. Where were you, Grandma? We were worried. Just driving. I like to clear my head. She exchanged a look with Derek, the kind of look that's supposed to be subtle, but isn't. Maybe you shouldn't drive anymore, Derek said, casual, like he was suggesting I try a different brand of coffee. You've been a little out of it lately. We wouldn't want you to get hurt. I've been driving for 60 years without an accident. Things change. He smiled, all teeth. We just want what's best for you. I smiled back. I know exactly what you want. He blinked, and for just a second, something uncertain flickered behind his eyes. But then Megan called us to dinner, and the moment passed. That night, I started hiding things. My real medication, the pills I'd picked up from the pharmacy, went into a tin of flour in the back of the pantry. My important documents, the ones Derek hadn't found yet, went to Ruth's office in a sealed envelope, and the notebook, My precious notebook, with its growing list of evidence, I moved every few days, behind the books, inside the piano bench, taped to the underside of my dresser drawer. I also made a copy of everything, which I mailed to myself at Ruth's address, just in case. The confrontation came on a Sunday morning, 3 weeks after I'd figured out their game. I was making pancakes, the old-fashioned way with buttermilk, when Derek walked into the kitchen holding a manila envelope. "We need to talk about your finances," he said, sitting down at the table like he owned it. "There are some forms that need your signature." I didn't turn around. "What kind of forms?" "Just routine stuff. Power of attorney, some updates to your accounts. Megan and I have been talking, and we think it would be easier if we could handle things for you. Pay bills, manage investments, take the burden off your shoulders." "I don't feel burdened." "Eleanor," he said my name slowly, like I might not recognize it. "You've been confused lately. Forgetting things. We're worried about you." I set down the spatula and turned to face him. "I'm not confused, Derek. I know exactly what day it is. I know exactly how much money is in my accounts, and I know exactly what you and Megan have been planning." His face went still. "What are you talking about?" "The pills. The credit card charges. The late-night conversations about getting power of attorney before Christmas." For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then Derek laughed, but it was hollow, forced. "You're imagining things. This is exactly what we've been worried about. I'm not imagining the sedatives you put in my medication." He went pale. Actually pale, the color draining from his face like water from a sink. "I don't know what you think you heard, but I didn't hear anything. I had the pills tested. There's documentation, photographs, a signed statement from the pharmacist." Megan appeared in the doorway then, still in her robe, hair tangled from sleep. "What's going on?" Derek turned to her, something wild in his eyes. "She knows." "Knows what?" "About the pills. She had them tested." Megan's face went through several expressions in quick succession. Confusion, then understanding, then something hard and cold that I'd never seen before. "You were supposed to be asleep," she said to me. "You were supposed to be getting confused. Sorry to disappoint you. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Her voice rose. "We were trying to help you. We were trying to make sure you were taken care of. By drugging me? By stealing my money? By waiting for me to die? It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" She didn't answer. Neither did Derek. They just stood there, two people who'd bet everything on my weakness and lost. I picked up my purse from the counter, the one with my car keys and my phone and the number for Detective Morrison at the Rockport Police Department. "I'm going out for a while," I said. "When I get back, I expect you to be packing." "You can't kick us out," Derek said. "We have rights. You have nothing. This is my house. My name is on the deed. My money paid the mortgage, and my lawyer has already filed for a restraining order." Megan made a sound like a wounded animal. "Grandma, please. We can talk about this. We can work something out. We're past talking." I walked to the front door, heart pounding but hands steady. Behind me, I heard them arguing, voices overlapping, blaming each other. "This was your idea," Megan hissed. "You're the one who said she'd be easy. I didn't think she'd figure it out." "She's 78 years old." "Exactly. How did she figure it out?" Their voices faded as I stepped onto the porch. The morning air was cool, salt-tinged, the way coastal Maine always smells in autumn. I took a deep breath and walked to my car. Detective Morrison was waiting for me at the diner downtown. He was a big man, quiet, the kind who listened more than he talked. I'd known him since he was a patrol officer responding to fender benders. Now he had silver at his temples and a captain's badge on his chest. "Eleanor," he said, standing when I approached the booth. "You said it was urgent." "It is." I sat down and told him everything. The pills, the financial manipulation, the overheard conversations. I showed him my notebook, the pharmacy documentation, the copies of the credit card statements showing charges I'd never authorized. He studied each piece of evidence carefully, his expression growing darker with every page. "This is serious," he said finally. "Elder abuse, fraud, possibly attempted assault depending on what was in those pills. Sedatives. Low dose, but cumulative. If I'd kept taking them for another month or two, I'd have been too confused to fight back. Can I keep these? I made copies. These are yours. He looked at me with something like admiration. You've been building a case. I've been surviving. He nodded slowly. We'll need to move quickly. If they suspect you've gone to the police, they might try to destroy evidence or leave town. They won't leave. They still think they can talk their way out of this. People like that usually do. Until they can't. I drove home 2 hours later with Detective Morrison's card in my purse and his promise to send officers by the end of the day. The house was quiet when I pulled into the driveway. Too quiet. Inside, I found Megan in the living room, sitting on the couch, with her arms crossed, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Derek was nowhere to be seen. He left, she said before I could ask. Took the car and most of the cash from my purse. Said he wasn't going to prison for a scheme that was falling apart. Where did he go? I don't know. I don't care. She looked up at me, eyes red-rimmed. Are you really going to press charges? Yes. I'm your granddaughter. You were my granddaughter. Now you're someone who tried to drug me and steal everything I own. She flinched like I'd hit her. I didn't mean for it to go this far. We just needed money. Derek said it would be easy, that you'd never notice. You underestimated me. I know. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm so sorry. I wanted to feel something. Sympathy, maybe, or the ghost of the love I'd felt for the little girl who used to pick wildflowers. But there was only emptiness, the cold space where trust used to live. Sorry doesn't give me back the months of fear. It doesn't fix what you broke. Then what will? Nothing. That's what you don't understand. Some things can't be fixed. They can only be ended. The police arrived at 4 o'clock. 2 officers in uniform, polite but firm. They took Megan's statement, documented the remaining evidence in the house, and explained that she would be charged with elder abuse, fraud, and accessory to assault. She cried through all of it, still trying to explain, still insisting she hadn't meant any harm. I watched from the kitchen doorway, hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. When they led her out to the patrol car, she looked back at me one last time. Grandma, please. I didn't answer. I just closed the door. They found Derek 3 days later in a motel outside of Boston. He'd used a credit card, which made him easy to track. The charges against him were more serious. Fraud, assault, elder abuse, fleeing prosecution. His bail was set high, and as far as I know, no one posted it. Patricia called me the night Megan was arrested. Her voice was thick with tears and accusation. How could you do this to your own granddaughter? How could she do this to me? She made a mistake. She's young. She was desperate. She was a thief, and you handed her the keys. Silence. Then, quietly, what is that supposed to mean? You knew something was wrong, Patricia. You had to know. But it was easier to let the kids handle things than to actually check on your own mother. I was busy. I have my own life. Yes, you do. And now, I have mine back. She hung up without saying goodbye. That was 2 months ago. We haven't spoken since. The house is quiet now. Not the tense, watchful quiet of those weeks with Megan and Derek, but something gentler, peaceful. I've reclaimed every room, washed every surface, opened every window to let the sea air blow through. I sleep with my door unlocked again. I take my real medication from its proper bottle. I drive to the library on Tuesdays and play cards with Ruth and Dolores on Fridays, and when they ask how I'm doing, I tell them the truth. Better. I'm doing better. Last week, I received a letter, no return address, postmarked from somewhere in New Hampshire. The handwriting was Derek's, though he hadn't signed it. You ruined our lives. 4 words. That was all. I read them once, then fed the paper into the fireplace and watched it burn. I didn't ruin anything. I simply refused to be erased. Sometimes I think about the woman I was before all this. Trusting, maybe too trusting. I let people into my home because they claimed to love me, and I believed them because I wanted it to be true. I'm not that woman anymore. I still love, but I verify. I still trust, but I watch. And I've learned that kindness without boundaries isn't kindness at all. It's just an invitation for people to take what they want. There's a new picture on my mantle now, not of Megan or Patricia, but of me, standing on the porch, smiling, the ocean gray and endless behind me. Ruth took it the day we finalized the restraining order. She said, I looked victorious. I told her I just looked like myself. If you're reading this, if you made it all the way to the end, maybe it's because something in my story sounds familiar.